Soyez bienvenus à discuter. Nous allons discuter devoir, vouloir, et pouvoir. As always, stop the video if you need to, pause it, take your notes. It's very important. This is your video. Today we're going to discuss what do they mean, how to conjugate them, how are they similar or different, some examples, and a common error that I see often. So what do they mean? They're modal verbs, so they add to what we're trying to say in this way and ability to express a sense. They're amazing. They mean basically to have to want to, and to be able to. Now, when we're looking at new verbs, we should always take a quick glance at what we've seen before and try to remember those patterns that we've seen before and see if any of those patterns will be applied to the new patterns. For example, these irregular verbs have these I's in them, even though the ER verb has an E. Will we see that? These all have this S's in them. Will we see that? Some T's as well as some A's and then an E. All three of these similar patterns we'll probably see somewhere. Let's see which ones we're going to find. These ONS's, I wonder if those will be the same. The EZs, will those be in there? I bet you they will, the EZs. And the ONT or ENT. So will we see any of these patterns? And so let's take a quick look at what patterns we will see. We will find the root of our word, voul, pouv, and dev. And the ONS and the EZ are going to be there. So those are, normally when we see this in the graph form, we'll see like there's this boot shape when it's in a different form. Well, these would be the two outside of the boot, and they look pretty regular. Voulant, voulez, pouvant, pouvez, devant, devez. The hard part is inside of the boot. Now, we still have some similarities in sound inside the boot. They just look so different because those O's here are changed with E's. So instead of vous, it's ve. So ve, vol. Peuvent, peuvent, pe, and peuvent. Sorry. And then OI makes a wa sound, so doit, doivent. So notice these consonants here will be pronounced because of the ENT, whereas these won't. At least vouloir, pouvoir looks similar in a little sense, so that might be helpful in remembering that just the O turns to an E. Devoir seems a little bit more complicated. And I have some good news. Devoir is similar to two other verbs that you're going to learn later. One is voir, to see, and the other is boire, to drink. And notice these conjugations. These inside the boots, we have the I, O-I, 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 O-I. And then outside, they look, similar-ish with the O-N-S and the O-Z. So hopefully that will help with general conjugation of these verbs. Let's talk about how they are similar and how they're different. Similar, they act like those other verbs that we know, the aimer, préférer, détester, things that tell us how we feel about something. Because we like to do this or we don't like to do this, they can have two verbs. So I'm able to do something, I must do something, and I want to do something. So two verbs. And negation is going to follow those same patterns with the two verbs, where the negation is going to go around the conjugated verb. So first verb's conjugated, second verb not, and the negation goes around the verb. And if you look really closely, the je veux manger le pain is very similar to j'aime manger le pain, and je veux manger le pain, and je ne veux pas manger les escargots. C'est similaire avec je peux manger le pain, je ne peux pas manger les escargots. I have tried them once. At least I tried. Je dois manger le pain. Je ne dois pas manger les escargots. And I probably don't need to eat the bread, but it's tasty. Now that we talked about similarities, let's talk about some differences. As with other verbs of preference, like aimer, préférer, suggérer, détester, these verbs can often take that infinitive, so I like to do these things, or I just like this thing, like cookies. Vouloir can do that because you want to do something, and vouloir can also take the noun, like I want this thing. Je veux du gâteau, I want some cake. Je voudrais du gâteau. Voudrais is this beautiful conjugation called the conditional with vouloir, and it makes it very, very polite, or not very, very, but beautifully polite. So whenever you want something, you're in a store, a restaurant, wherever, use voudrais. Don't use veut. That will be helpful. So again, those differences. Pouvoir has to have an infinitive because you have to be able to do something. You can't able something. Devoir is very similar. It's going to want an infinitive. You have to, you must do something. If you put a noun, it's going to sound weird because with a noun, especially money, it means that you owe somebody something. So, je ne dois pas manger, there's that second infinitive. I must not eat some cake. And je dois 5 euros à Bob, where this noun after the verb then becomes I owe. Like I must to him this money. All right, so common errors. The most common errors that I see are things where people are trying to use the verb avoir, which doesn't mean to have, but is in to have to. And that's not what it means. Avoir is this physical, very tangible, I can touch this thing. So when I see something like this error, j'ai, faire, mes devoirs, my head just can't wrap around it. It's actually really hard to say because it's so wrong. It means I physically have in my hand, like this pen, this thing that's called to do my homework. And that doesn't exactly make sense in French. And we also have to be careful because avoir can be used as a auxiliary verb for the passé composé. So if we use it wrong, it sounds like you've already done this thing. Not that you have to do this thing, but you did it in the past. So we want to be careful with that. So if we want to say I have to do my homework, we want je dois faire, infinitive, mes devoirs. Okay, so we talked about conjugation, we talked about some examples, and let's see like how this adds to meaning. So I'm able to really express, instead of just saying, yeah, don't eat that, or whatever, I can say, je veux manger beaucoup de biscuits de chocolat. Il y a quelques biscuits sur le plan de travail. So close. Je peux manger les biscuits because I'm so close. And then I can give you more information. I can really give you a sense of how this feels. Mais je dois pas manger les biscuits parce que je suis assez poudlée. Okay, so again, we talked about how to use it, what do they mean, how to conjugate, and how they're similar and different with some examples and some common errors again. Don't use avoir for devoir. All right. Si vous avez des questions, laisse-moi savoir.